Ladies and gentlemen, back by popular demand, Michael Winship.
Come on, talk to me. You can't see what's going on.
Every time I think I'm out, they keep pulling. I actually asked to introduce our next presenter of a special award because I wanted the opportunity to publicly thank him for our friendship and professional collaboration. Through an extraordinary career in journalism and public service, he has served democracy in such series as Creativity, The Language of Life, A World of Ideas, Sounds of Poetry, Fooling with Words, and many others. He has served to bring honor and dignity to writers everywhere, much as tonight's recipient of the Burkey Award has, which Bill is going to present. As Stephen Colbert said of him, he is everything I never aspire to be, calm, thoughtful, and informative. Among his many honors and awards, he has 3 Writers Guild Awards. I have 3 Writers Guild Awards too, and all of them are because of him. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Moyers.
You can't see what's going on. Yeah, what's
Thank
going
you.
on? Tell me what's going on.
Thank you. When Michael asked me to present the Guild's Lifetime Achievement to Norman Lear tonight, I said yes on the spot. Great, Michael replied, you've got 4 minutes. I was stunned. 4 minutes, Michael? William Shakespeare takes 2 hours and 35 minutes to tell us about Norman's great-grandfather. And you're giving me 4 minutes? Michael nodded and held up 4 fingers. I held up one in defiance, you know the one. Michael's seen it so often in his negotiations in your behalf, he never gets ruffled by it. And he didn't budge this time. But Michael, I went on, how in such a short time can I get what Mel Brooks meant when he recently told the journalist Neil Koch, outside of myself, Norman Lear is one of the most creative and talented writers in show business. I cannot expect the audience just to take that quote at face value, I said. I need to go on to tell them that Mel also said, I was very happy to be doing Get Smart with Buck Henry when Norman comes along and does those profound comedy shows with something to say about the nature of humanity. It's very nice when you can say something about the structure of society and still get plenty of laughs. And the first one to do that, Mel said, was Norman. So I asked Michael if this audience would want to hear this. After all, Norman revolutionized television. Surely, Michael, I have to explain how. Michael just kept polishing his fingernails. Without even looking up, he said some other time. He refused to relent, even when I said I needed at least a minute to call attention to the petition I'm circulating tonight to get Charlie Chaplin and Norman Lear up on Mount Rushmore before Ronald Reagan. Because the 2 of them turned comedy into prophecy and gave millions of people a cold water bath of truth. Jon Stewart will have to await his turn. Chaplin, with his poignant little tramp, ridiculing the totalitarian mind and the avarice of modern life, and Norman with the plain speak of ordinary people, peeling away the absurdities and hypocrisies that enfeeble America's promise. And Michael said, next time. I threw myself at his knees. Can I tell them how my wife, Judith, and I learned Norman's secret? How we went out to Hollywood in 1980 to do an episode with Norman, Carol O'Connor, and the others for our PBS series on creativity. And that's when we discovered that the source of his extraordinary vision comes from how he cuts an apple like no one else. You and I, most of us, we slice it down the stem, under, back up, and returning to the stem. Not Norman. He cuts the apple around its circumference, like a satellite circling the earth. And when it's pulled apart, seriously, Lo and behold, hiding inside the apple is a star. Norman, you see, finds something marvelous in what the rest of us see as mundane. Just imagine how the story of our species would be different if when Adam sliced the Eve, handed him from Eve, the apple, he saw not original sin snaking along at its core, but a star, and all the wonder inspired by that sight. Yeah, well, said Michael, save it. We're talking 4 minutes, period. But don't I get to talk about Citizen Lear, I begged, the Tom Paine of our time. Don't you want them to know how the boy Norman heard Father Coughlin spewing forth anti-Semitism from the radio? How he watched the keynote speaker at the first Moral Majority Convention in 1980, of which I made a documentary. The keynote speaker, a powerful fundamentalist Baptist preacher, proclaimed that God does not hear the prayer of a Jew. And how Ronald Reagan, sitting on the same stage at the very same time, said to the same gathering, "You can't endorse me, but I can endorse you." It's important to know, Michael, I said, how appalled Norman was as the religious right remade the grand old party, once led by Abraham Lincoln and Teddy Roosevelt, the presidents of his childhood, how the grand old party was becoming God's own party, turning politics into a holy war in which the goal is not merely to defeat your opponents at the poll, but to treat them as infidels to be destroyed. Don't these writers in particular, I asked Michael, especially want to know that when the religious right declared most American school books were nothing more than propaganda from the Soviet Union, and then went after Slaughterhouse-Five, The Diary of Anne Frank, and Catcher in the Rye, Norman recoiled and founded People for the American Way to fight back for freedom of expression and thought. Ever since I met him, and it was soon after we were in Hollywood and he was founding People For, and he knew of my concern about the religious right, and he came to see us in New York. Ever since I've known Norman, he has agreed with William Penn that to be furious in religion is to be irreligiously religious. No patriot I know has done more to uphold our Constitution as a guarantor of both freedom of religion and freedom from religion. At this point, Michael handed me his stopwatch, prefixed to emit a piercing and permanent sound exactly at 4 minutes. I have about 3 seconds. So I gave up. All right, Michael, what do you want me to do? I asked him, what do you want me to do? He answered, tweet. Tweet. Okay, that's what I'll do, inspired by remembrance of the Time magazine reporter who was sent to interview Cary Grant. As he was writing against deadline back in New York, he suddenly discovered he had failed to ask the actor his age. So off went a frantic telegram, "Please reply how old Cary Grant." And back came the film star's immediate reply, "Oh, Cary Grant, fine, how are you?" So here's my tweet. Old Norman Lear, fine. And we should all be so lucky. Not only did Norman survive constant flurries of flak from below and Messerschmitts swarming like wasps around his B-17 on bombing raids over Germany, he came home to thrive in hand-to-hand, rapier-to-wit combat in Hollywood, the only place on earth, as Steve Martin once said, where you can be fired by a man wearing a Hawaiian shirt and a baseball cap. Yet here he is tonight in his 9th decade with his soulmate Lynn beside him and other members of his family, pausing from an arduous book tour now in its 87th consecutive month, pausing to be with us tonight, while also trying to decide by Monday which of the 3 recent offers he will accept to produce a brand new series for this generation of binge viewers. And I'm not making that up. Let's look at what led him to this moment. Norman, you and I have tramped the yellow woods of Robert Frost together. We've celebrated the 4th of July in foreign countries. We've sat on the deck of a barge in the Seine and watched the night lights of Paris come on like a celestial visitation. We've stood on the plains from which the First Crusade departed and talked about how men do terrible things in the name of God. We've sat at table with old friends far into the wine of morning and shared indescribable camaraderie. We've laughed together and wept together. You even let me cry on your shoulder when I heard the news of the death of an old and unforgettable friend from a long time ago. Time and again, when I have doubted that the Christian ethic still survives, I've looked to you to be reminded. But never have I felt closer to you or loved you more than when, in the presence of all of your fellow and sister writers, I'm able to present you, on behalf of the Writers Guild of America East, the Evelyn F. Burkey Award for contributions that have brought honor and dignity to writers everywhere to Norman Lear.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you all so much. I couldn't appreciate more the warmth of this reception, but it's important that I point out that I'd have had a warm reception like this 4 or 5 years ago at 87, 88, 89. But once you cross 90, there's a big change that takes place. And it's not in you, it's in you. What happened? I mean, I'm the same guy. But I passed 90. I had some notes, but I am so touched by what Bill had. I'm really a hell of a guy. Gee. I have not known over all the years anyone in journalism more honest, with more depth, more sincerity, more courage, more of everything that's good for my kids and grandkids than Bill and Judith Moyers. So. That they are not on television at the moment. I pray that they'll be back. But, you know, it's customary, and everybody up here has thanked a lot of people. If I were to start to thank the people I need to thank, we'd be sitting here over the weekend, because nobody enjoyed a greater, larger, longer collaboration than I, with dozens of brilliant writers and scores of great directors and of course actors you know, I will take 100% of the credit for casting Rob Reiner, Sally Struthers, Gene Stapleton, and Carol O'Connor. I saw them. But I can't take a percentage of the credit for the chemistry that grew up between them in every single direction. Nobody could see that. By the way, there was a Marion Doherty who introduced me to these actors also. But talk about the giant nature of this collaboration. But the chemistry that developed between each of those players, and as I said, in every direction. Title of the book that Bill referred to is Even This I Get to Experience. And that glorious introduction, that friendship for all these years, that response from all of you, all of these glorious faces in this room, even that I got to experience. And even this moment of saying that, I get to experience. You know, you all came a long way. However old you are, each of you, every day of your life has been spent coming to this moment for me. And I have 92 years on record, spending every moment of my life to get to be here for you. So, I thank you, Bill. I thank my beloved wife and daughters who are here, and my sons-in-law, and I bless you all. Thank you all very much.